and trying to basically scam me. They were extremely racist. Sorry? Hello and thank you for clicking on this video. I thought I would sit down today and share a little bit of a story time with you. If you haven't watched any of my videos before, then you probably won't know, but I have actually been a freelance makeup artist for like 3 to 4 years now. I just wanted to share with you a specific thing that happened with a client. This is probably the worst makeup client I have ever had, ever. I really learned a lot from this experience and have been able to make some changes going forward from the way that I conduct myself. So I thought I would share the story with you and then also give you some advice for how to deal with whether it's awkward clients or customers. It doesn't need to be, you know, makeup clients. It could be in your workplace, you could be self-employed, or you could just be employed. Okay, so you might want to get a cup of tea for this one and sit down because I am spilling the tea. I'll start from the beginning. I had an inquiry through for wedding makeup. I do wedding makeup and occasion makeup. When I got the inquiry through, it was pretty straightforward. Someone had said, you know, the wedding's not too far away. The bride was going to do her own makeup, but we've decided that it'd be better if she gets it done. Are you available on this day? And I happened to be available. I basically came back and gave them a price based on the amount of people and their address and stuff like that. Then I mentioned that obviously we would need to do a trial. Even though we had a short space of time, I very strongly recommend, if not most of the time, refuse to do wedding makeup without a trial. So the person who inquired about the makeup, she actually wasn't the person getting married. She was a relative of the bride, and she explained that they'd never had the makeup done before. And I was like, you know, that's fine. Like, I completely understand. I have plenty of people who book in who don't regularly wear makeup or have never had the makeup done. Like, that's fine. So I got there. Upon meeting them, it was pretty normal. Obviously, I'm going into their home and everyone was quite polite when I first went in. Then we sat down to do the trial. So I just basically asked if she had any ideas in mind, as I would do like a little bit of a consultation at the beginning of every appointment. And she expressed to me that she wanted black and silver smoky eye. Never had a makeup done. She only does her own and very rarely wears makeup. I really felt like this would be a big extreme look for a wedding makeup. Even for someone who does wear makeup, black, silver, smoky eye is very dramatic, very dark, and generally wedding makeup tends to be a bit more neutral, soft browns, a little bit of shimmer. I obviously have to give my opinion on what they're asking for, but ultimately if that's what they want, that's what they'll get. And I just expressed that I felt like maybe we could go with something more of a dark brown smoke. She at first was like, no, I'm gonna have black and silver. Then she spoke with her relatives who were there at the time, who was sat down watching the trial, and they basically said the same as me. They're like, I don't think it's a good idea for you to have black and silver. Maybe you should go for the browns, like let her do it. And I explained, this is a trial. This is the time that we get your makeup spot on. This is the time that we can have a play around. If you don't like it, I'll take it off and do black and silver. She was like, okay, yes, let's do it. So great. I started the makeup, and very quickly into starting the trial, I felt very uncomfortable. I was having comments from both the bride, was making comments like, you know what you're doing, you better not mess it up, I better not look like a trollop when you're finished with me. And they weren't joking either. It wasn't like a thing that was like a mutual humorous thing. And I also had her family sat watching, which puts a little bit of pressure on. Bear in mind at this point I had only actually done, I think, 2 weddings, and it takes a lot of confidence to do bridal makeup. Having someone sat saying you better not mess this up when you're doing it, and having an audience, is a lot of pressure for someone to deal with, a lot. So I just carried on and tried to just focus on the makeup. That is probably where the worst bits started to happen, that her family members were sniggering and laughing and pointing at her and whispering, which was making the bride obviously extremely self-conscious. And she kept asking for a mirror, like, I want to see what you're doing. That is when the worst bit happened. One of her family members, not the bride, actually made some racist comments, not directed towards me, but they were extremely racist words that they were saying, and I just didn't know where to put my face. They all laughed and I felt extremely awkward. At that moment in time, I just felt like I wanted to leave. I just wanted to go. I didn't want to be in that situation anymore, but I just decided to persevere with the trial and just carry on. So we basically got to the end of the trial and she asked for a couple of tweaks, and then she ended up being, I mean, she never was happy would be the word. It was more of like, oh, that's fine. I left at that point and I was like, that's it, I'm not doing the wedding. That's enough. Like, I shouldn't be put in that position. This is where I made my mistake, and this is what I have had to learn from over the last couple of years, because this was a couple of years ago. So just as a bit of background, when I send a bridal quote out, I send like a full document with prices and terms and conditions and payment details and stuff like that on. And on the document, I do state that the trial has to be paid up front, basically as a deposit. And once we've done the trial, if they're happy to go ahead with the wedding day, they pay a further deposit to secure the date, and the remaining amount will be paid on the day. Now, when I was leaving, the person who actually booked me said, oh, I think we need to give you some money, don't we, for a deposit? And I said, no, it's okay, it's fine, we'll discuss it over email. I've got your details and I'll let you know what we need to do next. Because at that point I was like, I'm not doing this wedding. So I didn't want to take any money off anyone to then have to give it back because I would have cancelled. So that's just a bit of background for the next bit. So I went home and I was like, I'm not doing it. And then over the next few days, because the wedding was literally like a week or 10 days away or something, over the next week I thought about it a lot and started feeling very guilty. I felt like I was letting someone down. Knew she would probably not get a makeup artist to step in at such short notice, and that really played on my mind. Yeah, like I said, this is where my mistake came in and that I am willing to take responsibility for. And it basically got to the point where I felt like it was too late. It was a few days before the wedding and I was thinking, well, I've left it way too long. It'd be so unprofessional now for me to turn it down. And I decided to do the wedding. I should not have done that wedding makeup. I shouldn't. The behaviour that they had in the trial should have been enough for me to say, I can choose not to do this. I am working for myself. I can choose to walk away. I don't have anyone to answer to who can force me to do it. But I was young. I was new to it. I didn't want to disappoint people. I am a bit of an overthinker sometimes. So I got there on the day and decided in my head, that's it, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna get it done sort of as quickly as I can, but I'll still do my best. So I got there and I basically went to do the bride's makeup and she said, I've changed my mind. And I was like, oh? And she said, I'm gonna have the black and silver after all. And we hadn't done that in the trial. She had agreed to what was like brown and gold on her eyes. That's fine, like it's up to you, it's your decision, but obviously it made me feel extremely uncomfortable because that isn't what we had tried out. So I did it anyway and I still had the same remarks all the way through. She was criticising the stuff that I did and what I'd done before. She was like, you did this, I didn't like this. So throughout doing her makeup, she constantly asked to check for the mirror, was telling me, no, you better not make me look silly on my wedding day, which at this point I was like sweating. After the bride had finished, eventually, after a lot of tweaks, she said that it was fine and we moved on to her relative. Her relative was the one who booked me and who was the one making the racist remarks, and I really wasn't looking forward to doing her makeup. And she explained that she wanted the exact same makeup as the bride. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, is she going to be happy with that? Usually the bride has a bit of a different look. Obviously it's their day. So she told the bride and the bride was like, I don't care, it's fine. So she had that, and throughout it, again, she was very awkward. A little bit almost, I got the impression that she felt like I've hired you and I can basically say what I want to you. That's the impression that I got from both of them whose makeup I did, which, no, like, you might be paying me to do a job, but you're not paying me to stand here and take abuse. Like, that's not what I'm here for. But as I mentioned earlier, that isn't the kind of place that I was in my life at that moment in time. So I carried on, did her makeup, and she was really awkward. And then when she looked at it, she said, well, I thought you would have made me look prettier than that. And I was like, sorry? And she was like, I just thought I'd look nicer. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, is this something you want to change? Is this something you want me to do different? And eventually we tweaked a couple of things and then she was like, that's fine. Finally, it was time for me to leave and I was so happy and overjoyed. And she came over to me and she said, how much do I owe you? And I told her the price that she owed and she said, oh, is that including the money I gave you at the trial? And I said, oh, you didn't give me any money at the trial. She says, I did. And I said, no, you didn't. And she goes, it says on your quote on your email that a deposit's required. I paid the deposit. I said, it does say that on the email, but if you remember, at the trial when I was leaving, you asked me if you needed to pay any money and I said no, that we would talk about it on email. So the remainder of the money is due today. You haven't paid anything other than what you paid for the trial. Well, she said, I don't have the money. And at that point, I'm like, do you know what? I'm sick to death of these people. Part of me really wanted to be like, do you know what? Forget it. Give me what you've got and I'll leave. And then something kicked in where I thought, why should I let you off with money considering the stuff that I've gone through in this appointment? And she said, I've only got, X amount of money. And I said, well, can you ask someone else? Because that's the price. It's on the quote. It's very clear. And you didn't pay me anything else. That is the amount that you owe. She stood there, I think expecting me to say it doesn't matter. And I thought, do you know what? No, like I'm standing my ground on this. I am owed money. I have done my job. And you have been horrible, so I'm definitely getting the money that I deserve for this. And then she went out of the room, came back in with the cash in her hand, and she goes, here, but I definitely gave it to you. No, you did not. And if you did know that you gave it me for certain, you wouldn't give me more money. She obviously was trying it on and trying to basically scam me. She was trying to scam me out of money. And I just thought, they're cheap. So I left and I was really upset. I hated that I'd done it. I just felt really disheartened in terms of doing wedding makeup. And basically what I've learned since is that I should have never done it, for one. Number two, I shouldn't let people like that affect my confidence or my, the way I feel about my skills and the job that I do. I know that I did the best of my ability, even though I was put in that really horrible circumstance. And it took me a little while to get over it. And then I started learning then. I knew the things that I should have done different and I started to apply them in any future appointments where I felt like people maybe being awkward or making me feel uncomfortable, which hasn't really happened actually, since it doesn't happen that often. Most of my clients are amazing and lovely. I just wanted to share with you a couple of things that I learned from my mistakes that might help you in your job. So the first one is, you do not have to be made to feel uncomfortable, unsafe, awkward. You don't have to experience racism, verbal abuse. You are not there for that. Whether you work for yourself, which will obviously make it easier than working for someone else, but if your boss is going to expect you to stand there and take some of the things similar to what I did or abuse off anyone, then you need a new job. Like, I know it's not that easy. I've been in horrible jobs before, but I just want you to know, like, you should never have to be made to feel like that. Now, that obviously doesn't apply to if someone's just being a bit off or maybe not polite, but if they're being abusive towards you, no, like, get away from them. The second thing is that you can still retaliate whilst being professional. So you are able to respond to people. You don't have to stay silent. Like, you literally, if somebody is saying something, horrible towards you, you are able to respond. I think people think that they need to just take it because the customer is always right. It's not the case. It never has been and it never will be. That is not the case at all. The important thing to remember is that you can respond and be professional. Like, you don't need to respond back to them and be like, you. Like, okay, so for example, if you work in retail, if you work in a shop and a customer comes in and they've got a complaint about something that they bought or service, and they're telling you that you're incompetent or that you're stupid, which I've had when I worked in retail, then you are well within your rights to say to them, I understand that you are upset and I do apologise for that. However, there's no need to take that out on me. I will try and help you, but if you continue with that behaviour, I will be refusing to serve you. It's professional, it's precise, it's to the point, and you're well within your right to do that. And then the final thing is, do not take it personal. People will treat you like that, but the thing that you have to remember is it's not personal to you. Even if they're saying personal things, it's not a personal thing towards you. They will do that in a lot of shops that they go in. They will treat people in their life like that, in their family, in their circle. That's their personality and their behaviour that they will do on a regular basis. It's going to be really hard to try and sort of sympathise with people like this, but their life will be so miserable, because they're the ones that are walking around with all this anger, with all of this rudeness inside them every day. You aren't. Like, let it be a passing thing. Don't let it ruin your day. As easy, I know that's easier said than done sometimes. Don't dwell on it. Don't feel like you hate your job because of one person. I had someone like throw something at me once when I worked in retail, and it really sort of shook me up and just made me feel like I didn't want to work there anymore. And it was just a bad customer. It wasn't a bad day, it wasn't a bad job. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope that you find the tips that I have mentioned at the end of the video helpful. I hope that you're able to bring them into your job. I feel a lot stronger now. I feel like I've learned and grown a lot. I hope that, you know, you can learn something from it too. So thank you very much for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you here again very, very soon. Thank you.
Let me feel your love again. 'Cause I've been running round in circles screaming out your name.